Welcome to the Mission First People Always podcast. We're glad you're here. And now our host, Dr. Mike Patterson.
Hey everyone, it's Dr. Mike. Welcome to another episode of the Mission First People Always podcast, where we talk about leadership, teamwork, being a good human being, all that good stuff that you need. And we hope this conversation today is encouraging to you on your leadership journey. So I'm excited about this episode because we're exploring the life of a mission-driven leader who has turned a very bad situation into something that's hopeful and positive for others. So what happens when a woman's story of survival becomes a movement of hope for hundreds? In this episode, we sit down with Jenny Barber, who is a survivor of child exploitation and the visionary founder of Talitha Coffee, a mission-driven company with 9 thriving locations, 140 plus employees, and one life-changing purpose: to bring restoration and real opportunity to the survivors of trafficking. Jenny's journey is nothing short of extraordinary. From trauma to triumph, she's built more than a business. She's built a care network that provides employment, job training, housing, and healthcare to those society too often overlooks. This conversation will stir your soul and challenge your assumptions about what it means to lead with purpose, compassion, and bold vision. Whether you're a leader, a change maker, or just someone who cares deeply about others, you need to hear this story. Jenny Barber, welcome to the Mission First People Always podcast. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, you've got an incredible story, Jenny. Let's start there. You've experienced things that most of us can't even imagine, and yet here you are. You're leading a thriving business with a powerful mission. Can you take us back to the beginning and share how your personal journey led you to the founding of Talitha Coffee?
Absolutely. So I've been working in anti-trafficking for about 15 years now, and that really was inspired by my personal story. I was born into an environment where I was exposed to the issue of trafficking and exploitation from the very start. And I began to face those things myself as I grew older. And I ended up being adopted at the age of 6 and thought I had this moment of I've arrived, I found freedom, I found hope, my life, everything is changing from here. But I think that something that people don't recognize all the time is that those really formative years really shape the brain, right? And they really shape the identity and impact the identity. So it was almost as if there were these hooks in me from that time of being a child. And I continued to fall into exploitive situations throughout my childhood. And the scenarios were deeply impactful, and it felt like it was something that I couldn't get away from. I remember having the mindset of, I guess this is just my lot in life. I guess this is just how it's going to be. And there was this roller coaster in my life of having normal family moments and camping trips and going to church. And then there were moments of falling into really exploitive situations and having others use me for profit or for gain, and turning that abuse into something that was, exploitive. And so for me, I had this thing inside of me that was this internal battle, right? Where I was feeling on one hand, potentially this is all there is for me, and maybe this is my only value to the world. And then I also had this deep tenacity developing inside of me. I had seen exploitation affect my family for generations, and through many different types of trafficking and exploitation. And I was developing almost this frustration and this grit that I wanted to see something different. I knew that there had to be another way. And so as I grew older, I finally hit that point in my life where I decided I am creating a different pathway forward for the generations to come after me. And I am going to find freedom for myself. And I'm really wanted to create freedom for others. I've always been a leader. It's always been on my life. And I knew that, hey, I'm getting out, but I'm also bringing others with me. And so that was really the foundation of what started the work that we're doing.
So, what was that moment of freedom? When was that? What do you think drove that? The transition from victim to victor and a crusader for others.
Yeah. I think things had become really dark in my life. I'd moved out when I was 17 years old, and things really began to get to a place of real desperation and hopelessness in my life. And I actually had a moment in my life where I cried out to God and I said, if you get me through this, I will serve you with the rest of my life. And I meant that. So
Mm.
I got through a really hopeless scenario and situation that I was in, and ended up reaching out to my family and asking them to help me get back on my feet. And they did. And I had a pretty radical transformation in my life. A couple months later, I signed up for a missionary school and I jumped right in. I jumped in and I really encountered the love of God in my life. And that really was the catalyst for me. It was that place of knowing that there was something bigger than myself, and there was a greater call on my life. And I think as I encountered that love and that redemption and that restoration in my own personal life, that really inspired me.
Amen. That's an awesome testimony. God changes things. He changes lives. Now, I'm curious about the name of your business, Talitha. It's beautiful, it's unique. What's it mean and why did you choose it for your company?
As I mentioned, we have been working in anti-trafficking for 15 years. So in that time, we have been working all over the world combating trafficking, going into brothels and red light districts, strip clubs, working with those in the pornography industry. And we have seen some of the darkest and the most hopeless situations. We have seen people really just bound by slavery in ways that people cannot imagine.
Mhm.
And that felt like death. And so when we chose the name Talitha, it was a member on our team that came to us and said, I feel like this is it. I feel like this is what we're supposed to call this coffee company. It was that aha moment, right? Because it's Mark 5 in the Bible where Jesus raises the little girl from death to life and he says Talitha Coffee, which means maiden arise. And that is exactly what we've set out to do. We are calling people from the darkest and most hopeless places in life that feel like death into abundant life. And that's really the behind the scenes mission that's happening.
Yeah, that is a perfect name for you. Can you tell us a story about one of those Talitha experiences for maybe it's just one person, couple people, but what's a story that you love to tell about that death to life experience for someone?
Absolutely. There are so many. And I think that that's one of the most rewarding things about what we do is we get to see those stories play out in real life, whether it's a single mom really starting out her life and getting her first apartment and beginning to provide for her child, or if it is somebody, coming from really feeling discouraged and asking themselves what they bring to the world and then ending up going to pursue a college degree. There's so many different scenarios, but one thing that really sticks out to me is, as I mentioned, we did this work for a long time where we were going into the red light districts. One of those areas was in Los Angeles, and we were leading teams out. And this was really where the story of Talitha began, because we were going out every week and we were reaching out to those that were being exploited on the streets. And it was at that point that I began to feel frustrated, because I noticed that we were helping and that individuals were leaving this life and they were going through recovery programs. And then after that, they were coming right back to us because they were saying there isn't any hope. There's no opportunity. We're doing all of this internal healing. And then we get to the other side. And because of all of the barriers and there's like the criminal records and the lack of education and the emotional trauma that we've experienced, there is no opportunity on the other side. There's no employment, there's no housing, and all of these scenarios. So that became really frustrating for us. And my husband had been roasting coffee as a hobby. And so as he saw me coming home, increasingly frustrated with the broken system, he said, let's start a coffee shop. So that's when we began Talitha. But fast forward, several months ago, I was sitting in an interview with an individual that was coming on to work with us, and she began to very openly share her story with us and share about how she had been trafficked several years ago on the streets of Los Angeles, and that she would see these groups of people coming out and doing outreaches, and she was never allowed to speak to them. But one day she got the courage to call out to law enforcement and get help. And now she had gone through all of this recovery and was on the other side and looking for an employment opportunity. And to be honest, I started crying, because what she and I both realized was that the teams that she was seeing on the streets were our teams. And we were out there on the streets and we were dreaming of a solution for those who were being exploited and wondering, what does it look like to create that next step opportunity? And here I was seeing somebody who had really inspired the work that we were now doing. And so I told her, I said, you are the reason we started this company. And that was a really full circle moment.
Wow. So your story just gets better and better, Jenny. You have 9 locations, over 140 employees, and you haven't been at this all that long. So I assume this is pretty incredible growth and success. How do you go from this idea, or maybe this desire and this call? Your husband was doing coffee roasting as a hobby, and how did you go from that, your mission, the call of God on your life, to building this scalable, sustainable business? Just how does that happen? Are you a business genius? Is it God's hand of blessing? What is it?
Yeah, I think it has been remarkable. I definitely believe that it is God's hand. We had the vision that we really felt that it was inspired from a place of prayer. And those teams that were going out on the streets with us, we were all praying for a solution. My husband actually started roasting coffee on a popcorn popper on our stovetop. He started as a hobby, and somebody had...
By the way, is that best practice?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
But we would have friends come over and they would try it and they would say, Robert, this is incredible. This is ridiculous how incredible this is. And so as we realized this wasn't just a cute hobby, we began to purchase larger and larger roasters. And he started selling bags of coffee just on the side to help fund the work we were doing. And, gimmicks like, hey, buy a bag of coffee and you'll give a bag for an outreach and things like that. And so that was really the foundation of how we got started. We then had a church ask us in Los Angeles if they said, do you ever do pop-ups? And we would love to have you come serve your coffee at this massive conference that we're doing. And my husband and I always say, you start with a yes in your heart. So we said, of course we do. So we grabbed an espresso machine and some carts from Home Depot, and we actually pulled it together and made it look really beautiful. And we did our first pop-up event in 2019. And by 2020, my husband said, let's be a solution to the problem that we're seeing. Let's start a coffee company. So we started our first coffee shop in 2020 in Los Angeles, which was wild. And we opened up and people were so excited. We opened up in an area of LA that tends to be overlooked and has a lot of poverty, but we wanted to bring something really hopeful and beautiful to the area as well. And people were so excited. It became the neighborhood spot, especially during COVID when so many things were shut down. People knew that they could come and order at the door and get something and have a conversation and connection with people. And that became really special. But we realized that we were going to be limited in how many survivors we could hire in that context. So we reached out to a longtime friend that I had met in that very first missionary school that I had done and asked him if he would help us develop a model that was scalable, because I had gone the nonprofit route in life and he had gone the for-profit route. And he had taken startup ideas to being publicly traded large companies. And I knew that he had this strong desire in him to prove that business could be highly impactful and highly successful. And we knew the issue of trafficking in and out. And my husband became an expert in coffee. And we wanted to join forces. What does it look like to take somebody with the experience of growing a business that is scalable, and then taking the impact expert and the coffee expert and teaming all of that up to create something remarkable? So in our first conversation, he asked me, do you want to hire 5 or 10 survivors? And I said, I want to hire at least 1,000.
Wow.
And so that's when he became really interested. He was really successful in his life, was thriving, doing very well for himself. And when he heard that, there was something in him that clicked. And so he completely pivoted his life and he joined us. He became our CEO, and we began developing a model to grow through acquiring other companies that were looking to sell, and just really growing through that method. We opened up our first operation as Talitha down in San Diego in 2022. At the end of the year, we went from roasting 300 pounds a month of coffee to roasting 10,000 pounds a month overnight.
Holy smoke.
Yes, very steep.
You graduated from the popcorn popper, I hope.
Oh, yes. No, all of it on the popcorn popper. No. And we began to grow, and we also inherited a coffee training institute with that acquisition. Since then, there have been a total of 4 coffee roasteries that have been acquired in the San Diego area. We, as you mentioned, have 9 cafe spaces, 3 of them operating as Talitha and 6 of them operating under another name. We have this really impressive coffee training institute that does wholesale and even home barista training. But all of those classes are scholarshiped for survivors. And then we even have a maintenance repair company that does espresso maintenance repair. And all of that exists to employ survivors first, provide training, and then this really comprehensive network of care that's made up of experts and nonprofits that are providing services. But the thing that I love so much, there are 2 factors to our business that I think really make us stand out. One of those is that we have the all-star team. We really do. We have this group of experts who have come from their fields, whether it's operation or fundraising or administration. We have just the most dynamic team. And all of these people have come to the table because they've created incredible careers for themselves, but they want to be a part of something that's greater than themselves. And they want to be a part of something that is mission driven, and they are excited about the cause. So all of us are teaming together to really bring our expertise to the table and build something remarkable. The other thing is that we are an empowerment model. So we don't treat the survivor staff that we have as clients. When they come on, they are a part of the mission. We're very intentional with their hiring and their employment pathway and career pathing them and all of those things, and bringing them from a place of what does it look like to show up to work on time, and have an interview for the first time, and all of those things. And we're guiding them through that process, but leading them into a place of taking on leadership and initiative, and then launching either up into the company or out of the company. But if you talk to our survivor staff, they don't feel like a case. They don't feel like a client. They really are excited that they are a part of a company that is bringing hope to other survivors.
When does that happen? I was curious about that employee experience.
Yeah.
It begins, as sort of and correct me if I'm misunderstanding this. It begins as sort of a rescue mission, but then they become, through time and care and training, they become self-sufficient and start meaningfully contributing to the organization's success and supporting the mission for others. What does that journey look like for them? Do they begin with, is there a rescue phase? And just what is that journey like? And how many people stick around?
Yeah.
Do you get them to a point and kind of encourage them to move on to make space for others? Or could they stay forever if they're passionate about the mission?
Yeah. So we rely heavily on our partnerships. So we have our mission is kind of two-phase. So we have one aspect that we're measuring of what is our direct impact, and that is how many survivors are we hiring and providing training for. And then we have the indirect side of things that we're doing, and that's done through the Talitha Survivor Care Network. And that is a group of nonprofits and experts and law enforcement that are all bringing services to the table. So if we have an employee that needs medical care, or is working on reunification with a child, or needs their name changed, or needs housing stability and things like that, we have this whole network of referrals that we can reach out to. So we don't directly do that rescue phase, but we actually collaborate on those things within the network. So we just had a grand opening a couple weeks ago of a new Talitha, and while I was doing that grand opening, I was also on the side working with our Talitha Survivor Care Network and the nonprofit that I run and law enforcement to actually get a girl out of trafficking in Los Angeles and get her returned to her family. We're now working with those partnerships as well, and her recovery and restoration process. And what does it look like for her to really dive into healing? So a lot of our partnerships are doing this restorative work, and they're doing the work of the mind, the body, the spirit, all of the things that need to be healed, and really providing those safe places to begin to recover. And then they know that on the other side, Talitha exists, and we can provide employment and training. So when we have a position that's available, we send that position out to all of our partnership network, and they know that there's an opportunity and they can reach out with applications. The other thing is that they know that they can come to us too. So we will frequently get emails and resumes with individuals who are looking to take that next step. We just did multiple interviews recently of individuals that have gone through a recovery program in San Diego that we're partnered with called Generate Hope. And then they've gone through this process, they've done recovery, they've done restoration, and now Generate Hope contacted us and said, we have all of these individuals that are looking to take that next step and looking for employment. We are working on the interview process. And then we have another partnership with a local university that is providing scholarships for these survivors. So some of these individuals are coming through recovery, they're getting a job with Talitha, and then they're also able to begin going to college as well.
That's tremendous. You mentioned your goal is to hire 1,000 survivors. What's the plan to get there? You've got, I lost track of the number of locations. I think, is it 9 locations?
Yeah.
9 locations, 140-ish employees. We're going to 1,000. What's next?
Yeah. We're just getting started. I think that our growth has been incredible. I think if you actually look at how fast we've grown, it's pretty remarkable. And that is 100% because we definitely know God is on our side, but we also know that we have this really impressive team that is doing those acquisitions and that growth model really well. We plan to be a nationwide coffee company, so we're creeping our way into other areas. San Diego was the proof of concept. What does it look like to show our investors and to show the world that we can do this really well in a marketplace, and then take that and replicate that across the nation? So when we say we're on a pathway to hire 1,000 survivors, I don't think that it's this absolutely ridiculously ambitious goal. I think that it's totally attainable because we are going to roasteries that, maybe they started out as a hobby and they realized, wait, I got into something I didn't realize. Running a business is huge, or somebody looking to retire, or somebody kind of wondering what the next step is for their growth or looking for an exit. So we acquire other roasteries, and that's really our growth model. But I think with that as well, we want to be intentional. I think that you look at corporations that are doing acquisitions and it can feel like this huge monster. And we are really keeping true to the local marketplace. So even some of the acquisitions we've made, we haven't changed their name. We really haven't changed a lot except for looking at how we can improve their profitability and how we can simplify systems and how we can integrate that with what we're doing. But we really want to keep that locally roasted, your hometown coffee shop feel as we grow. And so I think that's something really special about how we're growing as well.
This is a leadership podcast, Jenny. You knew that when you signed on. So let me ask you a leadership question. How has I think that everyone's life experience, from family of origin to education to God's work in their life, it all affects the way they lead. So I don't know if you've reflected on this. I'm sure you have, but how has your past shaped the way you lead your team today? What's something you believe great leaders must do, especially when you're leading people who've come from this experience of trauma and moving into transformation? What inspires and drives your personal leadership?
I think that first, one of the things was that I actually went back to school to study neuroscience and, have a background in psychology and all of that because I in the beginning, I kept hearing people talk about how once an individual had gone through high levels of trauma, that they were always going to be stuck in that there almost would be this, disability almost because they had experienced tons of trauma and they could never break free from that. And so that the damage was really permanent. But as I really was studying psychology and neuroscience and all of these things, I knew that that wasn't true. And I also had experienced such radical transformation in my own life that I knew that the healing power of God is remarkable, but also that our brains are designed and created in a way where they can be regenerated and restored and all of that. And so I think that one is really recognizing that every individual has remarkable potential. And if you get them in the right seat on the bus, that they can do remarkable things and that we're all capable of way more than we think that we are. And that I kind of approach leadership in that way. I think one of my top strengths is definitely individualization, but I see how each individual has limitless potential. And I truly believe in that. I think that's something else that's been really important as a leader, especially working in this area, is that I do a lot of training when it comes to trauma-informed approaches and what does it look like to create successful social enterprise and all of those things. We are making that training replicable. All of our staff are really trauma-informed and things like that, recreating those really significant trainings for our staff so that when they have an individual in the workplace that is triggered, they know how to respond and things like that. But I'm always telling our staff, you have to do this work first. It doesn't matter what your background looks like. It doesn't matter what your experience looks like, but we really have to focus on being healthy individuals ourselves before we can, pass that down to those that we're leading. And when we have managers that are going through and leading those who are survivors or not survivors, we really make sure that they have those practices in place. And I think that really understanding it starts with you first.
Jenny, for listeners who are inspired but unsure how to help, how to get involved, maybe they live near one of your coffee shops, maybe they don't, whether they're business leaders, they're interested in coffee, they like coffee, they just care, they want to be part of your mission. How can people in our audience today get involved and support you?
Yeah. Well, first, if you're in the San Diego area, definitely come visit one of our shops. They're beautiful, they're fun. They're a great place to come. The other thing is that we actually do have coffee subscriptions as well. And so when people sign up, they can get coffee delivered directly to their home as much as they want. And this is award-winning coffee. We really create an exceptional product. They can have that delivered to their house, and they can know that they are bringing hope through their purchase. They are directly impacting the lives of individuals who are rebuilding and creating their story. So we wanted to create something that was a way for people to look at the issue of trafficking, understand that it's huge and it's complex, but there's something so simple that they can do to make a difference.
And by the way, I've tried your coffee and it is outstanding. And you mentioned that perhaps you would let your old pal, Dr. Mike, represent your company and offer a means through which my listeners can subscribe and support your mission. And I will be a subscriber and support your mission. And so there's probably going to be a link out there on my website and my social media promoting your work, your ministry, because it is meaningful. And who wouldn't want to be a part of what you're doing, and who doesn't love great coffee?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, Jenny, one final question. My listeners know this is what's coming. We land the plane with this question with every episode. And it's this: give my listeners one simple piece of advice that they can put into practice right away that will affect their ability to be a more effective leader, better teammate, better human being in the world.
Yeah, I think that Talitha really started by seeing a problem and bringing a simple solution. My husband roasted coffee and he took something that he brought to the table and we built something that made an incredible, incredible difference. And there were steps that we took. We were intentional. I think that the biggest thing is intentionality. Every decision that you make is either getting you closer to your goal or further away or keeping you right where you are. And so we've been so intentional, whether it's relationship building or just really focusing on what we're doing and, having that drive to continue to pursue the mission to hiring 1,000 survivors. Every single day, we have to make conscious and intentional decisions. But it really started with that very simple practice of being intentional with taking what we already had and what we brought to the table and providing a solution. And all of that has just really, cascaded into something incredible.
Find a problem, be part of the solution, bring your ideas, bring your passion to a solution for that problem, partner with the right people, as you were describing the people you work with. I often say it's all about relationships. And if you're
Yes.
bringing people who care as much as you do and have different expertise. That is the key to success. So, Jenny Barber, founder of Talitha Coffee, soon to be hiring and employing 1,000 survivors of human trafficking. Thank you for being a great guest on the Mission First People Always podcast. Thank you for doing what you're doing. Thank you for putting your life in God's hands and allowing him to use you as he has. And I just pray blessing on your work and your life and your family and all the people that partner with you. And I invite my audience to do the same and also become a subscriber to the awesome coffee that your team produces. So with that, I say to everyone, until we meet again on another episode of the Mission First People Always podcast, be a great leader, be a great teammate, be a good person. God bless. Have a great week.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you want to create a stronger, more people-centric and empowered culture for your organization, visit drmikepatterson.com.